During the mid to late 19th century, the Holt family owned one of the largest logging operations in Wisconsin. This building is the remnant of a depot camp from which supplies and lumberjacks were routed to work sites in the forests of Oconto County. Now surrounded by the McCaslin Golf Course, the combination kitchen and bunkhouse remains on its original site. The Holt family donated the cabin to the Oconto County Historical Society in 1946, and 30 years later, the McCaslin Lions Club began a major restoration project which has been a labor of love for former Army engineer Fran Pinkowsky.
The camp was deplorable. The roofs had caved in, the floors were partially caved in, the base logs were all rotted. So we had to start from the bottom up. We decided to take the property over as a community service project. We felt as though the property should remain here and be preserved. So after 7 years of volunteer labor and donations from individuals, we were able to open the camp to the public. To do the restoration, we needed timbers. We needed material that would be of the time. So the National Forest Service helped us out on that. The American Can Company. They marked the trees for us out in the woods, and we went out in the woods, cut the trees. We had them hauled in. We peeled them. We hauled them to the lumber mills and had it cut into dimensional lumber. And you'll see that, for example, the floor that we're on now is white pine. And white pine was the tree of the time, way back. And the boards in a roof are all white pine. And you'll notice some of them are over 20 to 21 inches in width. Yes. And we had professional carpenters and cabinet builders in the Lions Club. And when we put those boards on the roof, they almost cried. They thought there must be something else in knotty white pine, full cut to put on here. But we wanted to do the job the way it had been done. So I did research through the libraries. Malcolm Rosholt has several books that are very good on the logging in Wisconsin, and Eric Sloan has many good books on the tools. Mr. Don Holt was available, and I talked to him several times about what was here. Martin Bartels, whose son now owns a golf course, was just on the edge at the time that this camp was here. So they were able to pass along information. Then we interviewed old lumberjacks that were still alive in the era. Old Joe Cook, I think he was about 93 years old. Oh. He said he had cooked here one time, believe it or not, with the name Cook, and he had been here. In fact, he gave us a table that's in the cook shack there where they wash their hands and everything. The camp is laid out, this is the mess hall, and in between the mess hall and the bunkhouse is the dingle. In the wintertime, they would leave the meats sometimes hang out there, and they didn't have to use refrigeration for it. Now, records show that the Holt Company was in this area in 1852, 1857, but exactly when the camp was built does not show in the records, and the best they could determine was that this depot camp was built in about 1881. And a timekeeper went from camp to camp. And then he would get a record of the number of men that are working, the hours they work. Then he would go back to Oconto and prepare the payroll. And he had his own sled up here and his own little suitcase to travel camp to camp. And also there is a price list of the clothing for one individual, and he kept track of what was supplied to each of the lumberjacks because that was deducted from their pay, you see. That little room in the corner is the first cook's room, and he's a very special individual. He was boss of the kitchen, and there was no talking in the kitchen during meals. And you can understand, you had Norwegians and the French and German in here. You turn them all loose in conversation and the cook wouldn't know what to do. So that was a golden rule in all logging camps. You ate your meal and get out. Well, this is the bunkhouse. We had quite a job restoring this. And this is where the men would sleep probably on their, during their tour that they were in a camp. And quite often the new arrivals would be bunked in with the regulars here. Instead of 2 per bunk, maybe 3 per bunk. And then from this camp, they would be taken to the other camps. These are all original bunks. This is the way the bunks were built at the time. In the winter time, they hung their clothes on the rack, and it would probably be all soaked from the snow and the socks, and they would dry here in the winter time. But at 28 below zero on a January night with the stove cooking and the steaming, I imagine it was very rich in here.
They didn't have a lot of water for washing up, did they?
The water came from the creek in the front. That was part of the chore boy's duty. And he would fill the buckets, perhaps this one, fill this half of the barrel, so that in the morning when the lumberjacks would get up, they could come over and fill their wash basins, shave, and each one of them usually had their own mug and razor. And they would wash up here. And the first ones that would be at the washstand would be the teamsters. They had to be up earlier than the regular workers because they had to harness up the horses and hook up the wagons and get them ready. And it would be the first ones at the wash basins, and they would be the first ones in the kitchen to eat. And then on weekends, there usually was a fiddler maybe to pass the time away, play some cards. Someone with a harmonica entertain themselves. And quite often some of the lumberjacks could get back to, say, Oconto or someplace for a day or 2 because they had farms back in it and they left their families. And they came up to the camps to do the logging because there wasn't anything in the wintertime for the farmer to do. When it's quiet and it's dark and it's cold, you just sit here and you can almost hear voices from the past in here, really. I just hope that the building is kept maintained for the years ahead. Because from these buildings of this kind and from this labor, children today are having a much better life. There are descendants of these lumberjacks in the area that are professional men. They're lawyers and they're dentists and they're good businessmen. And these hard-working lumberjacks gave them that break through their efforts. So I'd like to see it stay so that the future can look at the past a little bit and see where they came from.